Had to correct the hat there. What is happening out there, Roto Scouts basketball fans? Hope your days are going well. Cujo's in the house. Hope your Tuesday's going well, buddy. Good to see you. Right on time, 4:45, early, 15 minutes early, earlier than I got here. Scrambling today to get this slate together. Wild-looking slate, NBA Cup day. Some decisive NBA Cup games we're going to go through real quick. I'm going to break down the NBA Cup clinching scenarios that are going on. It is me directly reading from a article that is up on USA Today, of all places. But they've got a quick little breakdown. I'm just going to go through that. It's the easiest way to get it done. We'll talk about Vegas, and we'll talk about the ins and the outs over the next couple of minutes as we get started here. And the reason I'm setting things up and giving you the table of contents for the show is actually because I'm rerunning The Sims in the background. And the reason for that is because of how one specific guy came up, and I just had him a couple points too low. Brandon Miller. We got him. We got him 19% of the time and a hard undercut over here. We got him 12% of the time and a hard undercut over here. But I wasn't really giving him enough credit for the scenario that they're playing in tonight. He's basically been at 1.20 for the month of November anytime that he's on the court without LaMelo and without Miles Bridges. And I didn't have him quite high enough for that. He's a 110 DraftKings player, 106 FanDuel player overall this year. But I gave him another few points on top of where I had him here, and I'm rerunning The Sims in the background. And I expect we're going to see a little bit more of him, probably just leveling him off with the field. But I think he's a big enough piece today that it was important to do that. You can see at the top of the board here, we've got Mr. Misic from that team dominating on the DraftKings slate at 85%, whereas 4,500, just 24% of them on FanDuel. We'll see how that mixes up. A lot of other things to talk about. Salon is coming through a little bit on DraftKings, not at all on FanDuel. Another interesting wrinkle as far as the price difference between sites for him. A lot of Knicks popping because I gave the Knicks a ton of minutes because they're one of the teams in a decisive game today. And it's the Knicks. So I figured just the starters are going to play the entire time. Ryan S. is finally out of jail. What's up, Bri? Good to hear. Hope jail was fun. Or at least not terrible. Ducking's here. What's up, Ducking? Good to see you. Handful of people here starting out again. I know 5 o'clock is not ideal. Believe me, I wanted to start this show at 4, but it just did not work out that way today. A lot to keep track of, a lot to do. Let's dive into some NBA Cup stuff real quick. So, starting in the East, Group A, Knicks and the Magic, both 3-0 at the top of the group. The Magic have a gigantic point differential, 60-point differential. The Knicks only have a 15-point differential. Doesn't really matter. Their winner moves on, essentially. Orlando, is the way they're putting it here, Orlando would likely advance through the wild card with a loss, though New York would have a much tougher chance due to their point differential. So for Orlando, the point differential doesn't matter. If they win, they move on. Whichever team wins moves on. But the Knicks might need to pick up some points for the overall point differential as far as making it if they don't win this game. So the 15-point differential matters for them if they're ahead against a pretty stout defensive Orlando team. Which seems unlikely. I think it's going to be a very competitive game. Then maybe they try and run it up. But either way, I just think the Knicks are looking to win this one, win outright, move on, and just play the primary guys a million minutes. So that's kind of how I have it projected. Orlando just kind of looks like who they are and pretty strong at the top end. And then the rest of that doesn't really matter. Philly, the Nets, and the Hornets are 1-2, 1-3, and 0-3 in Cup play. They're all out. The Bucks and the Pistons are both alive in Group B. Does that matter? Yeah, the Pistons are playing. They're playing one another. It's difficult to do this on multiple different screens without the schedule in front of me. Pistons and the Bucks are playing one another. They're both 3-0. They have almost identical point differentials: 29 for the Bucks, 28 for the Pistons. Winner takes the group. Both alive as a wild card. And they need to, they're two of the teams that the Knicks would, I guess, be chasing from their 15-point differential. So the Knicks would need to pick up like 15 points if it comes down to point differential for them. So again, they're just going to be looking to win that game outright. And as are both of these teams, should be a competitive game, should push a little bit of upside for both the Bucks and the Pistons. 220.5 point total, but only a 3-point spread in that one. Suggests a competitive game environment. The Knicks and the Magic game, it's just a 215 point total. Knicks are favored by 4.5 in a home game in that one, but you can definitely see that pushing up a little bit, or at least that 215 being entirely concentrated on the same handful of guys. So I think that's a valuable game either way. Everybody else in Group B is out in the East. The Heat, the Raptors, the Pacers. Nobody there matters. Group C, the Hawks have clinched. The Celtics are alive. The Bulls, the Cavs, and the Wizards are all out, so none of that matters. And then for the wild card, yeah, it's essentially comes down to the Magic, the Bucks, Pistons, Knicks, and Celtics, who are not on this slate. Out west, the Rockets clinched Group A. The Blazers are alive. They're playing the Clippers at the end of the night on the FanDuel slate. They've got a negative 5-point differential, but they're 2-1. The Clippers themselves are alive. They have a negative 6-point differential, and they're 1-2. So they're both technically alive for the wild card, but it doesn't seem like a great, unless one of these teams just completely destroys the other one and catches up on a lot of points. Seems unlikely. The Group B in the West, San Antonio, OKC, and Phoenix are all still alive. This is a really fun one because San Antonio and Phoenix are playing one another. And OKC is also on the slate. They're playing Utah. The point differentials there, San Antonio's got they're 2-1 with a 14-point differential. OKC 2-1 with an 18. Phoenix 2-1 with a 19. The Lakers and the Jazz are both out. So it's whoever wins. Let's think that through. All three of those teams are 2-1, so if one of San Antonio and Phoenix is coming away with a win, so then OKC would need to win, and then I guess it comes down to point differential to decide that. So OKC is going to be looking to score regardless of what's going on in that Utah game. I think point differential is going to be super important for them. Because if they come out tied, right? If OKC wins their game, the best they do is come away tied with either San Antonio or Phoenix. So they need point differential there. And then if they lose, actually, if they lose, I guess they, yeah, if they, all right. So if they need their point differential either way. Put it that way. Whether it's competing for the wild card spot or for the tiebreak in the group. Phoenix and San Antonio also are going to need those points for the wild card, so that should just be an absolute shootout. It's 229-point total, 7.5-point spread in Phoenix's favor there. The OKC and Utah game is a 13.5-point spread in OKC's favor at home, 223.5-point total. But those are spots you could definitely see those teams deciding to run it up. Golden State has won their group, but all three of Dallas, Denver, and Memphis are alive. That's going to come down to point differential. Other teams don't have a real chance, blah, blah, blah. I know I said I was reading this, but obviously I'm not reading it. I'm just looking at their grids that they publish here. So Dallas is crushing point differential in the West. They have a 41-point differential. As far as the wild card, it's 41 for them, and then it's that group of Phoenix, OKC, and San Antonio from 19, 18, and 14. And then, the Blazers are -5, Denver's 2, Memphis -6, the Clippers -6. So while those teams are technically still alive and could run it up, nobody's catching Dallas up top from that group. Phoenix would need to turn a hell of a thing to get there from 19 points. So as far as the teams that might be looking to run things up, Dallas maybe a little bit less so. That game does have a 244-point total, though. It's the highest total on the entire slate. Dallas is favored by 4. So I don't think they're going to take their foot off the pedal, but it seems like those other teams are going to need to press a little bit harder. That's the rundown, as I understand it, on this NBA Cup slate. A lot of wrinkles. I think the most important group there is the San Antonio, Phoenix, OKC games, the Orlando, New York game, and the Milwaukee, Detroit game. Those are the ones that are going to be really pushed for NBA Cup stuff. Full schedule, Philly's in Charlotte. That game is going to be just important as far as those value guys that are going to emerge with Bridges and LaMelo still out. So we've seen Micic succeed. We've seen Brandon Miller excel. We've seen Salon be a little bit up and down, a little bit difficult to trust, but the value's there. Going to get a lot of that one. Philly side of that, I don't know. It's a 211-point total. Philly's favored by 4.5. Just an ugly overall game, but Charlotte's coming up a lot. We'll see where we got Philly. Washington in Cleveland. Cleveland favored by 16 in that game, 234-point total. Odds and ends at worst. And maybe we'll have some guys pop from the mid-range, the Darius Garlands of the world. On the Washington side, no Kyle Kuzma, so there's an impact there. Milwaukee and Detroit we talked about, but that's a 220.5-point total, 3-point spread in Milwaukee's favor on the road. Indy and Toronto play a meaningless game, 238-point total, though. Looks kind of juicy as far as getting some pieces and parts at worst from both of those teams. Grady Dick coming back for Toronto as an impact for guys who have been getting minutes recently, so that's one to watch. He's currently questionable, if I'm remembering. That's a 3-point spread, Toronto underdogs at home. Magic and the Knicks, 215 point total. Knicks favored by 4.5. Utah and OKC is again 13.5 points in OKC's favor. 223.5 point total, but they're going to be looking to run that one up. Memphis and Dallas, 4-point spread, 244 point total, the highest on the board. We'll go through that one. San Antonio and Phoenix, 7.5 point spread, 229 point total. Golden State, Denver. Technically, Golden State is already clinched, but I'm sure they wouldn't kind of mind just squashing Denver down if they can. Denver's favored by 5 in a home game, 237.5 point total. Pretty nice total there. We'll probably see some Jokic. We'll probably see some pieces. Denver got Aaron Gordon back for mid-20s minutes. The Golden State guys, just nobody really playing over 30. Golden State and Memphis are both like that. Big rotations. Even their stars not really getting more than 28, 30 minutes a night. Frustrating teams. Houston and Sacramento, just a 1.5 point game there, favoring the hometown Sacramento Kings, 227.5 point total. I kind of prefer the Houston side as far as what we're gonna see come up. I wouldn't argue with some of the top end Sacramento players, but just rough defensive spot, and with other games that I feel like are going to be playing really, really fast and loose. Not sure how much we need the Kings today. And then Portland and LA Clippers to end the night, 8.5 point spread, 221 point total. And again, both of those teams technically still alive. They just need to score and score quite a bit. Injuries and absences. Let's see if anything broke over the last couple of minutes to render our current sim totally irrelevant. Nothing yet. Elfrid Payton going to be waived by the Pellies. Poor Elf. Talk about a guy who came in, give him way more than they possibly could have expected on that little replacement couple of minutes deal, and gets kicked to the curb right when they're healthy. Unfair. Such is life. Giannis is probable. Taurean Prince is probable. Reggie Jackson, Kyle Lowry, Caleb Martin, Colin Sexton's available. Jeremy Sohan is probable. Bradley Beal's available. Steph Curry, Aaron Gordon, and Peyton Watson are all probable. Questionables: Marjon Beauchamp, Daquan Jeffries, Mark Williams, Dean Wade, Ty Jerome, Andrew Nembhard, Grady Dick, Derek Lively, Klay Thompson, Kevin Huerter, and Scoot Henderson. Out: Chris Middleton, Andre Drummond, Joel Embiid, LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, Trey Mann, Grant Williams, Sadiq Bey, Kyle Kuzma, Max Strus, Isaiah Jackson, Aaron Nesmith, Ben Shepherd, James Wiseman, Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, Emmanuel Quickley, Paulo Banchero, Gary Harris, Precious Achiuwa, Mitch Robinson, Jordan Clarkson, Kyle Filipowski, Tyler Hendricks, Cody Williams, Alex Caruso, Usmani Deng, Chet Holmgren, Nikola Topic, Jalen Williams, Zach Edey, Jalen with a Y, Zach Edey, Gigi Jackson, Vince Williams, Dante Exum, Najee Marshall, Trey Jones, Yusuf Nurkic, Draymond Green, D'Anthony Melton, Vlatko Konkar, Devin Carter, Trey Lyles, Donovan Clingan, Matthias Thybulle, Robert Williams III, Kawhi Leonard, and PJ Tucker continue to be out. Let's see if those Sims finished up. Perfect. All you got to do is just talk for like 14 straight minutes and these Sims finish in the background. Let me update. We'll see where we land on the new stuff. This is FanDuel that I just grabbed. Hit the like, hit the subscribe as we get started here. Bear with me while I just pop in our new results. All to take care of just one player. I want to make sure we get them right. potential big piece today. Brandon Miller. Again, 1.20 per minute for the month of November with, it was like 170 minutes, I want to say. Let's see, do we get him more? We better have. Very different slates, by the way, cross sites. Let's see. There we go. 35% level with the field, 46%. A little bit under the field on DraftKings, but that's a difference. Again, that was giving him 2 points. And this is where he should be. That's why I reran it. That was critical. Misic came down slightly. He was like 88 before. I'm more comfy here, I think, at 82. That's a big chunk. We got a lot of differentiated guys up here. We're going to have to sort by FanDuel positioning. As usual, when we've got these split slates, it's 11 games on FanDuel. It's 8 games on DraftKings, so radically different slates from site to site. But let's resort this column, and we'll dive on in. Just to tackle some FanDuel-only outliers from those late games. Shaden Sharp coming up a little bit, 5,900 small forward shooting guard, 24% exposure, a little bit ahead of the field. Not a terrible option. He's a .87 per minute player. He's appropriately priced for his role. Again, Portland, potentially still alive, looking to press some points if they can against what is a pretty good defensive Clippers team. I don't really see them succeeding, but they might try. So maybe you pick up a couple additional minutes on a guy like Shaden Sharp, a little bit of additional rate uptick. He is a 25% usage guy for 5,900. So if the shot's falling a little bit, you could do worse, and it is a late night spot that you can just book and then swap around. You've got some similarly priced guys like Jalen Green at 6,100 in one of the later games, 30% exposed, level with the field there. If you're swapping one for the other, I don't really mind it. I do think Jalen Green is the better per minute guy, 0.92 this year, slightly better, 1.02 last year, but a scoring dependent player by and large. Not going to really be a problem against Sacto. Up top, James Harden, 10%, a little bit below the field. If you want to push that to 15, 20, wherever the field's at, that's fine. Harden's been very good in a per minute sense this year at 137 on FanDuel. So for 9,800, he's priced correctly for it. He's getting a little bit of attention, but he is one of the better options in a per minute sense from that late game. And the Clippers, again, might be looking to push scoring. So I could see it. Just one share of Fox, onesie-twosies on Steph, Jamal Murray, no real love there. Freddie Van Vliet, mix and match play. Amen Thompson, 6% level with the field. I wouldn't mind a little bit more of some of the Rockets in that game. Again, I like that side of that one better, but I'm content with my Jalen Green shares if that's the way they go. Otherwise, just onesie-twosies. 8% of Terrence Mann is below the field at 3,900. That's fine as a value play. If you just take more shares of a $3,900 value play, that's probably 10, 12% owned here. Perfectly fine. Same deal with like Podziemski, Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn. But nobody more important than a mix and match in that group. So, Misic, problematic on the DraftKings slate, 4,500 over there. He's 51 on FanDuel. It just lands differently. Point guard only on both sites. Still a 5.1 value score on FanDuel. He's not irrelevant to the FanDuel slate. We got him 30% of the time, a little bit above the field. I actually really like that. You don't have to get crazy highly exposed to him, and you're still gaining a nice little advantage on, a 0.70 per minute player this year, 0.80 per minute last year on basically league average usage. Little bit of an uptick for him, though. He's been getting the minutes. He played 34 the other day, put up better than a point per minute in that game. So you can get that kind of upside for what is a reasonable FanDuel price and still a very cheap DraftKings price. This is where you really want him. 5.8 on the value wheel. 82.6% exposed in our top 150 lineups. Our most highly owned player at the guard position against the field, most highly leveraged guy. Seems just like a very, very important building block piece. If something weird happens and he doesn't start, then we could have a different conversation, but I expect he's going to start and get the minutes again. So I think we go right there. Brandon Miller, now our second most highly exposed guy on DraftKings. Again, that was just a correction from where we saw him before. That harder undercut to the field. If you want to knock him back to his season-long rate and just ignore the fact that LaMelo and Bridges are still out, then the undercut that we saw at the beginning would be appropriate. That's essentially where that ran. So, depends on what you think. But the numbers are saying, at least right now, it is still a relatively small sample. But this is where he ought to be. 35% basically level with the field, 8,400 shooting guard, small forward on the FanDuel slate. On DraftKings, 8,000, a little bit cheaper, gets him 46% of the time. That's a little undercut to the field. Field's in the 50s. But definitely somewhere you can land. Where's the field? Let's see. Yeah, that's the most highly owned guy on that slate. So, important piece. You could be a little bit below the field. You could be a little bit above the field. That's fine. But you want to be at least dancing in the range of the field, I think, on a player like Brandon Miller today. Chris Paul, 18% below the field for him. 23% a little below the field on DraftKings as well. Chris Paul's going to be one of the guys looking to press the pace. They're looking to win that game. Again, they can advance. They're going to want to score, or they're going to want to win the game. So everybody, San Antonio, Phoenix, Devin Booker right there, 24%, a little above the field on him, 19% on DraftKings, level with the field. A very solid $9,000, $8,900 piece. He has point guard eligibility on DraftKings, shooting guard, small forward on FanDuel. Point guard, shooting guard, rather. Shooting guard, small forward on FanDuel. So a different fit across sites. I like getting to Devin Booker on the FanDuel slate when I can. And in a game that they absolutely want to win. You can see him pushing tempo. You can see him pushing scoring. 1.12 per minute for the season. Went out, played 38-2 the other day. Put up a 49.1 on FanDuel. You have upside like that. Any given slate, he was a 1.23 player overall last year. You do get a little bit of back and forth biting between him, KD, Beal. But he's the primary option as far as I'm concerned. SGA, that's another one. 20% of SGA, 18.6%, and a little undercut to the field. I wouldn't mind taking a bigger share of SGA. Just again, given that they're going to run that score up as much as they can in that game. There's only so much I want to do as far as like projecting a thing like that. Right? You don't want to artificially just say like, well, I think they're going to score 15 more points than Vegas does. That's silly. So you got to temper these things a little bit. But for SGA, I've essentially got him on his rate for the season, which is an excellent 1.50, 1.49 on DraftKings. He was a 1.54 player last year. Slight uptick in usage this year. It's a 0.4 of a point of usage, but it's not nothing. Extra one shot over the 15 games or whatever, 19 games. So if you want to give SGA a minor nudge just to get a little bit more of them, take them up to the field, I think that's fine, but then you're not really building a position, so then we get into the discussion of how much do we want to kick that up above the field. So somewhere between here and like the angle we have on Booker is probably appropriate. Right? You want to be a little above, a little below. If you're at the field, that's fine, but monster upside for SGA and potentially like hidden ceiling upside, if that makes sense. Cason Wallace, a mix and match play, 10% there, 16% on DraftKings, 4,600 across sites. Point guard only on FanDuel is kind of limiting. At least he has multi-position on DraftKings. We get him a little bit more, a little bit closer to the field, it looks like. But not much more than a mix and match player. 0.77 per minute on 11% usage. Even with minutes, he's kind of a low-end guy. But again, that team is going to be looking to play everybody and run the score up. Stephon Castle, 9% on FanDuel, 14% on DraftKings. Little undercut to the field on DK. Basically level on the FanDuel slate. Kid's been playing pretty well. He's been a fantasy asset in some games. And then he's had disasters like this one. 32 minutes, 9.5 FanDuel points. Total mess. 0.81 per minute for the year, though. Decent assist rate at 20.7%. Solid usage, slightly above average at 21.3% usage. His true shooting is problematic at just 48.7%. Taking a handful of threes a game and making under 30% of them is part of the culprit there. But he's been at least a mostly stable fantasy contributor. And those are indicators that there's a little bit more there. So at worst, I like getting him right around here. 10, 15%, I think is perfectly acceptable. And once again, it's a game they're going to want to press. Isaiah Joe is almost exactly like Kesson Wallace, being a just kind of mix and match piece with a low rate, low usage, low production. Sub 10% assist rate, a 5% rebounding rate, 54% true shooting. He's just a guy who's out there running up and down the court, contributing from time to time, but 0.75 per minute, not overly appealing, just a spot filler. KCP against the Knicks. Both those teams are going to want to win, but it is a low total, and KCP is one of the bottom end per minute guys on the entire slate. We did get him 10% and a little bit below the field on the DraftKings slate at 4,300. At 47, shooting guard only. No better than a mix and match player. We got one share of him. Maybe we would get 5 if we reran it and gave him another minute. But again, another guy that's just kind of a filler that just drops into lineups at the bottom end as you run hundreds. Maxey is much more than that in terms of the player that he is, but we really didn't get him at 8,800 on FanDuel. 0%, 4.57 value score is pretty light. On DraftKings, 10%. He's only 8,200 on the DraftKings slate. That is a much better price to find Tyrese Maxey. 5.07. We're looking for 5.5. But among the players that are, we've already crept into a range where everybody down this territory is below 5. So that stands out a little bit, given his per minute ability. 1.16 this year, 1.13 on the FanDuel scale last year. We know what the usage is like, 30% for the season. Definite upticks in the right spots. And, even though it's not a cup game, or it's not a relevant game, it's a good opponent. It's a good game total. Again, that one was coming in. Oh, I'm sorry. Not a good game total. 211. My bad. Misremembered. That's the lowest game total. Still, I think the point stands that Charlotte is a good opponent for him to individually find success against as far as fantasy scoring. Too many moving parts on this as far as who cares about their games, who doesn't care about their games, who's going to run up their score, who's already advanced, and then what the game environments are like. Too many things to cram into one head. Jordan Poole, mix and match piece, 116 per minute on FanDuel, 119 per minute on DK. Get him a little bit more on the DraftKings slate. With fewer games, we are getting a bigger spread, it looks like, on DK. FanDuel's kind of more consolidated around a few guys as we go down the board here. DK, we're getting a lot of onesie, twosie shares of everybody. Just an interesting difference across sites. Poole with no Kuzma, there's reason to believe that he'll be creating more offense. Put up 52-3 in 34.2 minutes the other day. He's just crazy unreliable. But 6,900, not a bad price to find him on DraftKings with eligibility at both guard spots. 7%, a little bit of an undercut to the field. It's not one I would say you necessarily want to go press back up to the field. But you could conceivably give him a couple more minutes. Cleveland, terrible opponent for them, though. $3,200 KJ Simpson on just 16 minutes. Came up a little bit, but I wouldn't really consider that all that much more than a mix and match piece. It's just price driven and levering some other things into lineups. That is, though, that 5% or so is below the field. So the field's getting there on Simpson a little bit. 0.90 per minute, 0.91 on DraftKings so far this season. But again, limited by minutes. If he gets out there and plays a ton, this obviously shoots up the board. So, one to watch for changing scenarios. But right now, just kind of in is who he is. Mikal Bridges, even at 37 minutes, really didn't come up. I kind of have him still limited to what he's been doing for the season, which has been a pretty significant downgrade in his per-minute production. But he had his best game of the year just the other day, 39.3 FanDuel points in 35.5 minutes, was making shots, was doing a lot. It was coming off of another game where he had been not great and a lot of guys in the locker room giving him support because the media is trying to make a thing of him not being great to start the season. So nice to see, but I didn't give him full credit for being like, oh, well, all right, we're right back to the .94 guy from last year. I don't think we're getting that guy back just because the Knicks don't really need him to be that guy for one thing. But .85, somewhere in that territory, halfway in between, I think that's appropriate expectations-wise. So I think there is a little bit of upside on Bridges, and there is a very significant chance that most of the Knicks' top-end guys play 40 minutes tonight. So at 37 wasn't significant, but we did get him on DraftKings, a little bit below the field. If the field's in single digits and you want to give him credit for that 40 minutes that he's likely to play, you can press up above the field, get him like 12, 15, and you'll have an advantage if that does come to pass. There's no guarantee of that, but out of the things that we could guess at on this slate, that does seem like one of the more likely scenarios. I mean, we're talking about a dude who's averaging 38, so it's not like 40 is a gigantic uptick for him anyway. Darius Garland, I mentioned him before, just being curious where we'd see him as far as exposure. 7,300, 10%. If you take that up to the field, if the field's 15, that's perfectly fine. He's been playing great. 117 per minute on FanDuel, 122 per minute on DraftKings. 4% exposed on DK. Below the field, 7,500 over there. Not exactly the price hit that he is on FanDuel. Different slate, I feel like we'd be getting significantly more Darius Garland at that price. But although 4.85 is a value score, where do I have him? Do I owe him a point or two? I do not. Nope, got him like at his production, right on the nose. So yeah, sub 5 value score on FanDuel, sub 5 on DraftKings. This is closer to the mark than the DK one is. That's why we're getting a little bit more of them. Luka did not come up on FanDuel, barely came up on DraftKings at 11,000. Obviously, that's a player you can take a position on. If you think Luka's going to go out there, lead Dallas to glory, and light up Memphis, that is one of the best per-minute performers in an average situation. So you can take more, but it's kind of at your own risk as far as how the numbers look today. 148 per minute on the season for LaMelo. That's down 143 on the FanDuel scale. That's down from 1.64 overall. The usage is down slightly. Missed a few games along the way. But it is still Luka. So you can take it on the raw upside, but the math is not supporting the Luka play right now. Power's here. What's going on, Power? Mama says, I'm trying to get to first place today. Need to get the Roto Scouts on top. Love it. Let's do it. Put that logo on top. Philip says a little after 6, maybe 6:30 if that's okay. If you want to leave it somewhere on the steps, you can. I will. Not sure who that was for, but I don't think it was for us, Phil. Your UPS delivery person is probably very confused asking about P.J. Washington's points per minute. Where else are we going to go here? Malcolm Brogdon, mix and match on DK a little bit below the field. But again, once we get down to this level and it's below the field like that, that probably just means the field's 5%. So Brogdon's fine, but he's not much more than a mix and match piece at best. And again, I just don't love throwing guys like him at Cleveland. Tyus Jones, mix and match. Nobody overly appealing on the DraftKings onesie, twosie shares of everybody. These are all mediocre guys through the threes and fours. Jalen Brunson is not that. 1% of him at 8,500. You can take a few additional shares there. The field not exactly heavy on Jalen Brunson, and I've got him at 36. He didn't really come up, but if I put him at 38, 39, 40, he probably would have. 1.23 per minute on the season for 8,500. That's not bad. 87 on FanDuel. It's basically the same scenario. 1.3% below the field. But if you gave him a goose on expectation of the Knicks want to win this game, he is one of the guys that Tom Thibodeau relies on when that scenario. I can see it. 28% of TJ McConnell is a little bit surprising. 4,900. I've only got him at 21 minutes. It's not like I gave him much, but that does put him right on the 5.0 value score. I was not expecting to see that much TJ, though. Come on. I have TJ today at 21 minutes. Joker, what's the matter, buddy? Can you go lie down? I don't know what he's whining at. 21 minutes, and I have him slightly below his season-long production. He's at 118 for the season. 115. Sorry, this is the DK number on the other sheet again. I keep doing that. 115. I've got him right at his season production. So you get that weird day where TJ plays 24 minutes instead of 21 minutes. His per minute contributions are huge. And even without that expectation, it seems like he's coming up quite a bit on FanDuel. Again, that's 21 minutes at his current year production, which is down from 1.30, I'll point out. So, monster piece with upside, but not a lot of reliability in those 21 minutes. You know, you could get a downside game. He only averages 19 for the season. He played 22-1 the other day, put up a 26-8. That's exactly what we'd be looking for. But that would occupy a significant share of your point guard only spots when you got a lot of options on a big slate. That is a weird one. 6% of Tyrese Halliburton on the other side of on the same side of that game, rather. Point guard and shooting guard eligible on FanDuel. We got him 6% of the time. Point guard only 8,400. Not really relevant to the DraftKings slate outside of just being a good player who does have pretty decent per minute upside on the right day. It's been mostly the wrong day for him this season. 1.07, 1.1 on DraftKings. It's down from 1.38 last year. But that means there is visible ceiling there on any given slate. Going up against Toronto should be healthy for him. Paul George, mix and match piece at best on both sites. No love for Paul George today. Ty Jerome, Kyle Lowry, nothing there. We do have 24% of Cade Cunningham on FanDuel to talk about, though. 8,900 for Cade on FanDuel at point guard only. He's 9,700 on DraftKings point guard only. We got one share of him in 150 on DK. We got him nearly in 1 in 4 lineups on FanDuel. That's level with the field FanDuel, slightly below on DraftKings. If you want to take a few shots on Cade, throw a few darts to get yourself back to the field, or honestly, if the field's at like 2.5% against that number, if you take him to 5 or 10%, it's fine. 9,700, 1.34 per minute, that's appropriate. But you're just taking shots. On FanDuel, it's a great buy. 8,900 in a game they absolutely want to win. 1.28 per minute for the season. Obviously has been banged up. So you've got that issue, but just looks like a critical piece on FanDuel. Very different play across sites. A couple more guys that are differentiated across sites at the bottom on FanDuel. We got differentiated guys up top in games that don't exist on DraftKings and differentiated guys down here for different price points and positioning. Lou Dort at 5,000, handful of shares, a little bit below the field. Lou Dort, Kason Wallace, Isaiah Joe, these guys are all essentially the same fantasy performer as far as being fairly low rate, fairly low usage. But among them, Lou Dort is the best guy as far as per minute. 0.81 this year, 0.73 last year. So he'd be the guy I would prefer out of that group, but that also makes him the most expensive. Mix and match player at best, but again, game they'll want to win. Very solid game environment for OKC to go out there and score a ton of points. Agbaji, 12%. Not really a player I'm going to go out of my way for. 0.78 per minute this year. Just a price fit at shooting guard, 4,500. These are odds and ends kind of shares, but it is kind of a lot of odds and ends. It's probably like 15% by the field. I'm comfy being below the field on Ochai Agbaji. Donovan Mitchell, I'm happy to be at the field or even a little bit above. 87 both guard spots, 22% exposed on FanDuel. Looking like an interesting piece over there. 1.25 per minute. They should handle their business and then some against Washington. Last outliers, Jared McCain, 6% exposed on the FanDuel slate for 6,200. Had a monster letdown performance the other day. 29 minutes, put up a 9.8. I think it was his worst game of the season. Had a lot of them that day. Wasn't happy. He's a mix and match player. Let's get off of guards, talk about forwards. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe. Rotoscouts.com. Check it out. $1 a day, under. Got to remember to say under at the front of that because it's less than $1 a day. Gets you access to NBA, NFL, NHL, projections, content for NFL, projections for every main slate for NFL, NBA, NHL, all for under $1 a day. Access to all 3 sports. When MLB's back, that'll get piled right into that. Over the summer, we'll have to find a few mixers to pad the offering alongside MLB, but we'll get there. Even if it was for baseball only, $1 a day. Pretty good value. Check it out at rotoscouts.com. Check out our guys at acemind.io too for the access to where I'm running these sims. They have great sim and optimizer tools. They are the best deal in the industry for tools like that. Nobody provides that robust a tool set for that kind of a price. Promo code ROTOSCOUTS, all in caps, gets you 20% off your first month when you decide to subscribe over there. All right, we got some differentiated guys in a big way on FanDuel between Shaden Sharp, who we talked about, but Jonathan Kuminga, 62%. He is the most highly projected ownership guy on the FanDuel slate, pulling a 5.56 value score for 5,500. A lot of fives. Power forward and small forward eligible. No Draymond. But again, Golden State really, even in situations where guys have been absent, kind of been clipping everybody 31-minute caps, like where I've got Wiggins, who's also coming up like a pretty big piece. But it's been really few and far between where this team's had to do very much. Or had to run these guys out there for 35 minutes. Big minutes exposure. And I think they're deliberately, I've been saying it all year, they're quite deliberately trying to run a big rotation, keep everybody under 30 minutes. I think it's a health thing. I think they have very sharp analytics that say it's not best to have everybody out there 34 minutes. Let's go 28. So bonus is a mix and match piece. Again, just a grindy game for them going up against Houston. 4.6%. Not surprised by that. DeRozan, same deal. Michael Porter, mix and match at 2%. But Wiggins and Kuminga, both major pieces. 45%, a little above the field on Wiggy. 62%. That's a little above. I think it was like 59 when it ran. But right there. Shaden Sharp, again, we talked about, but a little above the field on him. Below the field on TJD, but still a 30% chunk. 4,400 center and power forward eligibility. 114 per minute on FanDuel this year. 118 per minute last year. This is only on 20 minutes. So if he plays 24, we're getting just significantly more, and I would want to be level with the field. Field's not way out ahead of us, probably 35% or so. But not a terrible option. And we did get a big chunk. Derek Jones, Terrence Mann, below the field on both, 20%, 8%. Same deal with Kyle Anderson, 15%. All 3 of those players I am happy to leave on the woodpile to a degree. That is, not a good per minute guy, not a good per minute guy. An okay per minute guy who puts up very disappointing performances and needs extended minutes really to succeed in slow-mo and has greatly outperformed his historic rates so far this year. He's the guy we got 15% closest to the field. We got 20% of Derek Jones and way below the field, and 8% of Terrence Mann and pretty hard below the field. Again, happy with that position on all 3 of those guys. Any one of those guys could see success. I think Kyle Anderson's the most likely despite the fewest minutes. And he could see an uptick beyond beyond the 17. He's not like an outrageous talent, but he's a smart basketball player. And I think they like him. Hasn't played more than 17 minutes in their last 5, though. What was his peak for the season? This is a deep dive we don't need to do. At 20 minutes, 1, 2, 3 times, and peaked at 24 minutes, but that was in an overtime game against Houston. But again, I think in this particular game, I think there's a little bit of additional, maybe he gets to 20, 22, which would make him significantly more interesting for 3,800. Not like a priority go-to great piece, but I would just be happier having Kyle Anderson if I knew he was going to play 22 minutes. I'm happy with the undercut if I think he's playing 17. Scotty Barnes, monster. Did I skip over Scotty before? Because he doesn't have guard eligibility on FanDuel, that's why. Power forward, small forward on FanDuel. We got him 42.6% of the time over there. On DraftKings, 8,300 point guard, small forward eligible. 80% exposed. That's a monster. 5.93 for his $8,300 price tag. He's a 1.34 per minute player on DraftKings this year, 131 on FanDuel. It's a minor uptick in his 10 games from the 1.27 that he put up last year. He's just a good player. Return to form. 91 is still a little bit cheap on FanDuel. 83 is ridiculously cheap for Scotty Barnes' upside on DraftKings. That's a killer spot. Yeah, he is not significantly owned by the field either. That's a major, major piece above the field. You could take less of Scotty and still be super comfortably above the field if you want. But looks really, really good for that 83. I'm sure RJ's right in here somewhere. Yeah, there's RJ. Just 8% of RJ on FanDuel, 16% of RJ on DraftKings. A little below the field there. Slightly closer to the field on FanDuel, but less overall exposure to RJ. 8,000 at both forward spots, 7,900 both forward spots on the DraftKings slate. Let's see, we're a little below the current year number on RJ, which I think makes sense because a lot of that came with Scotty out. We're a little ahead of the current year number on Scotty, which you could argue could come down the other way. You take like a point and change, point and a quarter or so off of his projection. You just put him at like 48 even. You'd probably get 70% instead and just a little bit more of a distribution. So pretty straightforward path to getting a little less if you don't want that much of them. But having the combination of these two guys that much is kind of interesting. They have interesting positioning, point guard, shooting guard, and small forward covered by both guys. So I like that combination of two high-end players with solid point per minute upside and solid opportunities for success at very fair DraftKings prices. And they're the same. It's not the same because the prices are different on FanDuel. That 91 is less comfy, but we got a lot of Scotty on the FanDuel slate. Salon, we did not get on FanDuel at all. Tijani Salon. 28 minutes projected. In 22 the other day, he put up 7.7 FanDuel points. That was another day where he was another player. That was the same slate as that McCain-Field slate. I had a number of lineups that had both players in it. Not a great day. 0.63 per minute overall on the season on 13% usage. Not really even a mix and match guy on FanDuel for 4,900. That price is just wrong. 3,800 on DraftKings, different story. We got him 44% of the time. He's a fundamental piece of value on DraftKings for the 38. That price, more correct for a guy putting up 0.65 per minute. Just know that you've got a total clunker. Very, very possible, given his really low per minute mark so far. Not in double digits as far as assist rate, rebounds, 44.1% true shooting. The minutes have been there of late with the missing pieces for Charlotte, and he's priced appropriately on DraftKings, so it does make sense. But he's been kind of a disaster out there most nights. So an uncomfortable piece of just kind of mandatory chalk on the DraftKings slate. Happy to not have to get him on FanDuel. Josh Hart, I would like to have more of. I did put Josh at 39 minutes. I think that's appropriate. I feel like out of everybody, he's the most likely guy to go out there and play more than 40 minutes tonight because that's what they were doing down the stretch the entire time last season. And the team, it changed, but it's not changed to the point where they're like suddenly robust on the bench and Tibbs is going to an 11-man rotation. He's going to play 6 or 7 guys tonight, and they're all going to play a ton of minutes. So I wouldn't mind having a little bit more heart, leveling him with the field. 8-10% is fine over there. 0.96 per minute. Nice uptick so far this season. It's been tremendous for them. Good category stuffer. I mean, the 68.9% true shooting, whatever, but 19% assists, 11% rebounds. Very good player overall. 32% level with the field. Love it. small forward, power forward eligible on DraftKings for 67. Nice $600 price difference between sites. It's your most important nick so far on the DraftKings slate. Mobley and Jared Allen both look more important on DK. 31% of Mobley level with the field, 21% of Allen level with the field. I like both players. I think both of those prices are fair. They're both a little bit more on FanDuel, 81, 72, up from 78 and 66. You get a little flexibility with Jared Allen having power forward eligibility, but it's not really buying you much, 3%. We did get a lot more Mobley. He's also got power forward and center. We got him 18%, but that's an undercut to the field. Still a 5+ value score, though, on both guys. So that's something to pay attention to. I think that's mostly impacted by the fact that we've got these options, and we're getting so much of them. So those guys are just boxing out shares of these guys, and those guys don't exist for these DraftKings shares. So that's probably a big part of that equation. But either one of these guys or both of those guys could very easily succeed at 5+ value scores. Oops, that was the wrong guy. These two guys, 5+ value scores. This guy I definitely think is going to succeed, and I definitely am happy to have above the field. We already talked about him as Devin Booker. We talked about him during the guards. 16%, that's RJ. We just went through him. But again, if you got more RJ, it's fine. 7,900, 5.14 value score. That's perfectly fine. Again, we're chasing 5.5 here, but we're not far off the mark. He's sub 5 as far as his value on FanDuel at 8,000. A lot less important on the FanDuel slate, but we've seen major upside from RJ this season. 118 is a very big uptick over the 1.02 that he put up between New York and Toronto last year. Solid jump in usage, but again, part of that came with Scotty out. They're still missing IQ. Grady Dick is questionable, so we'll see what we get. At worst, I think you're only looking at upward trajectory for RJ. So if you want a little bit more, take a little bit more. I don't think he's going to necessarily underperform where he's at. I mean, obviously there's the chance that he underperforms, but I don't think he's incorrect to have a few more shares of, and there's visible upside for him beyond where I've got him projected. Kispert, mix and match FanDuel, same deal on DraftKings, 9, 10, 12%. A little bit below the field on both. Harrison Barnes, no love at all, 0.71 per minute. I am fine not really getting much Harrison Barnes on FanDuel. Even when he's cheaper than this, 47 at both forward spots, not a great price fit for that rate. 44 on DraftKings, got him 11% and below the field. I'd be fine taking that down to 8% and grabbing more shares of more important guys. Ben Matherin's looking like a piece. FanDuel anyway. 9% below the field on DK. He's a 0.97 per minute guy for 7,000. I don't love that price. That's what's killing him on the DraftKings slate. I feel like you let the field have that one. On FanDuel, though, at 65, shooting guard and small forward eligible, we got him 35% of the time. That is below the field, though. And honestly, with a lot of other interesting pieces in this price range at these positions, I think I'm okay taking a few more shares out of that. Get them maybe not all the way down to like 25, but like, it sounds like a silly number, but like 28. I didn't want to say just 30 because that's 5%. A little bit more. Like 28%, a little bit harder of an undercut to the field on a guy who's coming up close to a 5 value score, but not quite over. He is a decent per minute performer, though, for 6,500. It's not a bad price fit. I think I'd rather spread those shares if the field's going to be living there, though. Field's probably 40+%, given what that looks like. Nothing wrong with Indy, though. I mean, it's soft opponent. Kelly Oubre, mix and match on both. We did get 8%, but an undercut to the field on DraftKings for 53. John Collins not really popping like he has on recent slates, which is probably for the best. 1.24 FanDuel, 1.25 per minute. It's a monster uptick in his per minute rate this year. Going up against OKC, though, that's an absolute grind of an opponent. So don't love that. I think they're just going to get completely lit up here, and OKC's just going to run the score up. So maybe that floats plays like Collins from the other side as they try their best to keep up, but doesn't look great. SAR, one share on FanDuel, 6% and below the field on DraftKings. Mix and match piece, but could see additional upside. Did play 36 minutes the other day and put up 13.9 FanDuel points in that. But for the season, we're at 1.02. And again, no Kuzma for Washington. Could have an impact. But right now, not looking like a critical piece and is carrying an okay projection. Got him a little slight tick below the season-long rate for the matchup against Cleveland. That's what's biting him to below 1 per minute, but we're only slightly below 27.6 in 28 minutes. Oof, almost 6 o'clock. I got to hurry. Jalen Williams, 5% and a hard undercut to the field on FanDuel. You could take more than that, though. I got him a little bit below his current season-long rates, but again, with the idea of explosive upside for everything OKC, he's one of the top pieces. He's their second-best per-minute performer. Absolutely can take more shares of Jalen Williams, and you might see a little projection increase as we go forward because we really didn't get a lot of them. 4% on DraftKings and a hard undercut to the field. Wouldn't mind having a little bit more. Siakam, 7% in that soft game against Toronto, 4% on DraftKings. Mix and match piece with solid upside in a per minute sense. He is a 5+ value on FanDuel. Same number on DraftKings. Better buy on the FanDuel slate. Onesie, twosie shares of everybody down here. That includes Wemby, 10.6. We only got him 2% on DraftKings, 2.6%. Explosive ceiling upside in a game that they absolutely have to win. I can see a huge performance like this. 74.3 points in 36.6 minutes out of Wemby. Can't project him that way, but the ceiling is there any given slate. And if he's out there doing his thing in a game that they're going to be pressing, I could see more minutes, I could see more upside, and I could see him very quickly becoming critical because of the exponential growth in his score when he plays more minutes. Clark, mix and match piece on both sites. Don't really love anybody from Memphis today with their minutes limitations. As far as outliers on FanDuel outside of these guys, 8% of Clay is fine. Sohan is a big FanDuel piece. I forgot he was going to be there. Jeremy Sohan on DraftKings. We didn't get a single share of because he's a $6,300 center, which I don't really get the price or the position. On FanDuel, he's a $4,700 power forward, which makes sense in the position, but not the price. And we got him 55% of the time. He looks like a ludicrously valuable piece. He's been putting up 1.06 per minute in his 7 games, playing 30 minutes a night this season. Even if he reverts to form, that's 0.90 from last year on 18% usage, and that's perfectly fine. I've got him at 26 minutes. He could easily go out there and play 30, 32 minutes tonight and kick up even more value in a game, again, that they want to win. So, love the Sohan play on FanDuel. Not at all relevant on DraftKings. Nothing else to talk about down the bottom of the board there. 4% of Lou Dort we talked about already. Let's get to centers. We're going to rocket through this. Hopefully there's nothing crazy. Just want to get out of here because there's going to be a lot to update, and it's a 7 o'clock start today. So we'll talk a little bit long about some of that stuff, but hopefully at least the NBA Cup stuff was worthwhile. Okay. Differentiated pieces for FanDuel. Şengün, 13% level with the field. I'd be happy to have 25%. Honestly, he's a very, very good per minute performer. 52.3 in 38 minutes the other day. With minutes creeping up, I like the option for more Şengün. 3% of Jokic, that's a player you can absolutely have more of. That's below the field. It's probably not that crazy, though. The field's probably 5-8%. So if you're at 15% Jokic, you're fine. That is a 1.73 per minute. He has nearly unrivaled ceiling. Zubac, 13%. Happy to have that, but I'm also happy to trade those $7,000 Zubac shares and something else to get myself to more of Jokic or Şengün. But Zubac, a good per minute guy in his own right, and costs significantly less than those guys. 111 per minute on the season on FanDuel. Not bad, 13%. TJD, we talked about already, has power forward eligibility. That's probably where we're getting most of those shares. 18% of Cat. I love to see that. Again, I really like the upside for the Knicks. I don't love the opponent for him as far as just Orlando having a lot of functional bigs, but Cat is not really a guy that's going to bounce off that. He gets a lot of his from the outside, so I think Cat's perfectly fine here. 1.45 per minute on the season on FanDuel, 149 per minute on DraftKings. Sign me up for some Karl Anthony Towns on both sites. I like that quite a bit. That skips over, of course, though, Joe Val. At 15% on FanDuel, Joe Val looks like a piece we can have around the field. We can also sacrifice some $5,700 Joe Val to get to some of these guys, to get to some more Cat, whatever we want to do there. I think is perfectly fine. He's an excellent per minute guy, but for the season, his minutes, he's averaged 20 minutes per night. I've got him at 24 today. He went out and played 30.8 the other day, and again, no Kuzma. So there's just minutes to cover. But if you get a reversion in minutes, even from the 24 down to 20, this just goes away. Same deal on DraftKings where we got him as a massive piece because he's only 52 over there. You get multiple center options over there. 6+ value score, 69% of the time. I'm just really, really hesitant to push that one. I almost had him projected at 22 minutes, but I felt like it made sense to give him, the additional 2, but not put him even halfway to the uptick that he saw the other day. So I'm not totally comfortable telling you to go out and grab a lot of Joval, but he is coming up. I mean, we're above the field, but the field's got him quite a bit. That is a... Jesus, is he the second most highly owned projected? He's now their second most highly owned projected player. Our 69% there is the field's closing in. He's now their highest owned player. I reloaded the page. We're a solid chunk ahead of the field there. We got 20-ish points on the field. So if you want to come down and bail out on the minutes, needs every single one of those 24 minutes he's projected for. So, little concern around that one. But again, I mean, got there and kind of underperformed his talent in 30.8 the other day. He put up 30.9. But he's a 1.2 per minute player or better. Mobley we talked about. Get to him plenty on DraftKings. Get to him on FanDuel, and you can take more of that. He's excellent. And he'll be on the other side of that revolving door of defense that Washington's going to be rolling out there today. Miles Turner, a mix and match center on FanDuel at 19%. I'm fine with that, but that's another guy I can take a little less of to get to a little bit more of the centers I like a little better. Iguodaro is a critical piece on DraftKings to talk about. 3,800 power forward and center eligible. Only 16%. I'm actually a little surprised that exposure is as low as it is. I guess he got chewed up a little bit. I was expecting more. He just saw a nice uptick in minutes the other day. Played 30.6. Just put up 19.6 FanDuel points. He's been a .74 DraftKings, .76 FanDuel player on very low usage. And shows no value to the FanDuel slate whatsoever for 44. But is a price-driven guy on DraftKings. Again, I was thinking we'd be 20+ and probably level with the field. And I think you could take him back to that stage. But he is another guy. This is going to depend on those minutes actually being there. Got him at 24 minutes also. Did basically the same thing with him and Joval. As far as, don't want to go quite to half the uptick that they saw, but I want to represent the uptick kind of significantly. And it looks like that's basically what everybody did with it. So we'll all die together. 8% of Jakob Poeltl mix and match guy. Again, Miles Turner mix and match. 8% of Miles Plumlee on DraftKings is a $4,000 play. We didn't get any of him. We got 2% of Poeltl, 3% of John Collins, no Wendell Carter on FanDuel. Little bit Wendell Carter, 8% for 5,100 on DraftKings. It's a good per minute performer to find for that price, honestly. 0.99 so far this year, 0.94 overall on the FanDuel scale last year. For 51 with power forward and center eligibility over here, I get having 8 to 10%. That's fine. Center only over here, doesn't fit at all. And really nobody else. A little bit of Goga, 3% on FanDuel. 114 per minute for 5,700 center only. If we're not getting Wendell Carter, there's just similar minutes, similar production, and Wendell Carter's cheaper. I can make an argument for having more Wendell Carter than Goga, but these are shares I would probably just take and honestly sink into guys up here. Whoops. And that's about it. Wemby again. You can absolutely take more of Wemby than this. Low exposure to Wemby right now. James Young says, Oso or Obi on DK. Sorry for kind of ignoring chat today, guys. It's not. It was not the most crazy chat. Yeah, Beyond the Rabbit Hole, it's Memphis and Dallas. That's at 244. But yes, that was a 244-point game, at least as of a little while ago. Grady Dick is out per power. Mama said if Scotty Barnes could be 20% more efficient instead of taking so many bad shots, Toronto would be the best team in the league and dominate tonight's slate. Scotty's 65 now on DK. Yowza. Yeah, I mean, that's especially, no Grady Dick to bottle things up a little bit. That's just going to be RJ and Scotty day. Again, definitely can press that, but 80-ish% was our exposure that we got to Scotty, so you're going to want to hang in that territory if you want to be above the field. Going back to that question, though, Oso or Obi Toppin, not players I was really thinking about in a head-to-head sense because I didn't really have Obi on my radar. That's why. Looking like Oso. Little side by side. Neither guy relevant to FanDuel. Power forward center for Iguodaro. Power forward only for Obi, 4,400, 4,100. I've got the minutes advantage laying with Iguodaro, 24 to 18, so 6 additional minutes for your $100 more. I think that's a solid buy. 5.15 value score versus a 4.47. Obi's not a bad player. He's the better per minute guy, 0.89 per minute. We got him 5% of the time. That's an undercut to the field. Has anything changed around Obi since I ran that and saw the news, though? Let me see. Where do these guys have them? So it's like just into the double digits as far as ownership goes. To get him there, you would basically have to project him for an additional like 1.5 beyond what I have, which is it's okay. If I give him that, it's puts him at 1.0. Basically on the nose on DraftKings. Actually, that would be... You'd probably want to do that through minutes, not juicing his rate. So, like, you'd have to kick him into the 21-minute territory, 20, 21. Let's see. Nemhard is available. That was the one I was actually just gonna came up a minute ago. So just another body in the mix for them. I don't really see a justification for giving Obi more than 20 minutes. So yeah, I think for your head-to-head there, I think it would be Iguodaro. But between the two, we're just talking about like relatively low-end value guys at spots where there are comparable plays that we're getting quite a bit more. But yeah, Iguodaro I think would be the more functional one. But again, we kind of do need those closing minutes that we saw the other day. It was a nice little uptick for him. 6:11. All right, guys, with that in mind, I'm going to end the show. I got to get out of here and get some stuff updated. Ty Jerome out. Appreciate that, guys. So we got to take care of Ty Jerome. We got to take care of, let's see, Dean Wade is in. Ty Jerome. A couple other things. And then a lot of news coming down, I'm sure. Going to be a fun slate tonight. Get your lineups built and stay on top of things because things are probably going to change as we go through the night, especially with some of these aggressive spots. So good swapping day. A lot of games to deal with on FanDuel, too. Good luck out there tonight, you guys. Somebody go win something. We'll be back for more tomorrow. Later.